The hum of the environmental systems was a constant, low-grade headache behind Leo's eyes. He stared at the food synthesizer, its display blinking a cheerful, infuriating yellow. Nutrient slurry number 4, optimal for juvenile development. It was the third time this week. His daughter, Juno, was pushing the supposedly delicious gloop round her bowl with a spoon. Her small face a perfect mask of discontent. "It's got bits in it, Daddy," she mumbled, not looking at him. "They're flavor bits, bug. The good kind," Leo said, the light tasting stale on his tongue. He ran a hand over the stubble on his chin. At 38, he felt every one of his years, plus a few extra borrowed from the station's artificial day cycle. The death of his wife, Alara, 2 years prior from a sudden neurological cascade, had left him a ghost in his own life. A man barely keeping afloat in the vast, metallic sea of the O'Neill cylinder they called home. His work as a senior terraformer on the station's agri-dome was demanding, requiring long hours calibrating atmospheric simulators and soil nutrient cycles. Juno, now 7, was paying the price. Her teacher had sent a gentle message about missed assignments and a withdrawal from group activities. The guilt was a physical weight in Leo's stomach, heavier than any gravity generator. "Mrs. Pavensky from down the hall can pick you up after school today," he said, forcing brightness into his voice. "She said she'd make you those spiced potato cakes you like." Juno's head shot up, her dark eyes wide with a betrayal that cut deep. You promised we'd go to the Zero-G observatory today. You said." A cold knot tightened in Leo's chest. He had promised, and he'd forgotten. A critical Rutrot simulation in Sector Gamma had demanded his attention, and his daughter had slipped his mind. Again, "I know, Bug. I'm so sorry. Something came up at the dome. It's an emergency." The word felt hollow. Everything was an emergency lately. "Everything's always an emergency," Juno whispered, echoing his own thought with devastating accuracy. She slid off her chair, the uneaten slurry forgotten. "I'm going to get my bag." The silence she left behind was louder than the station's hum. Leo leaned against the kitchen counter, his shoulders slumping. This couldn't continue. He was failing her. He was failing Alara's memory. He opened his personal datapad, his fingers hovering over the screen. With a sigh of defeat, he began to type "Live-in domestic assistance required. Single father seeks help with childcare, 7-year-old daughter, and household management. Private quarters provided. Competitive stipend. All species considered. Must have references." He posted it to the station's community board before he could lose his nerve. It felt like an admission of failure, a white flag raised to the universe. "I can't do this alone, Alara," he murmured to the empty room. "I hope you'd understand." The response came faster than he expected. Just as he was tucking a sullen Juno into bed that night, his pad chimed. A single message, from an ID he didn't recognize. "Mer, Evans. My name is Anya. I saw your advertisement. I have a son, Kellen, who is 6. We are recently arrived from the Velen diaspora. I am seeking stability and a home. I am proficient in childcare and household management. I would be grateful for an interview. Valen. He'd seen a few of them in the corridors since the refugee ship had docked a month ago. Tall, slender beings with skin the color of twilight and eyes that held the faint luminescence of nebula. Gas. They kept to themselves, a quiet, dignified people displaced by a conflict on the galactic rim. A widow with a son. His ed had said all species, but he hadn't truly considered what that might mean. He typed a reply, arranging a meeting for the next morning. The following day, Leo and Juno attempted a frantic cleanup of the apartment. Juno, her earlier anger forgotten in the face of a new adventure, was more of a hindrance than a help, organizing her toys by piling them in the center of the living room. The door chime sounded precisely at 10 o'clock. Leo took a steadying breath and opened the door. She was taller than he'd expected, willowy and graceful. Her skin was a soft, dusky violet, and her hair wasn't hair at all, but a cascade of fine, silvery tendrils that shifted subtly round her face. Her eyes, large and expressive, were the color of a star-filled night sky, flecked with tiny points of light. She wore simple, gray station-issue clothing, but carried herself with an innate poise. And half hidden behind her legs was a small boy, a miniature version of her. with the same luminous eyes wide with apprehension. "Mr. Evans," she said, and her voice was like nothing he'd ever heard, a soft, melodic chime that seemed to vibrate in the air itself. "I am Anya. This is my son, Kellen. Thank you for seeing us. Please, come in," Leo said, stepping aside. As they entered, he noticed how little they carried. Anya had a single, worn satchel, and the boy clutched a small, carved stone animal to his chest. Juno, forgetting all her manners, stared openly. "You're purple," she blurted out. "Juno," Leo scolded, but Anya's lips curved into a gentle smile. "It is quite all right. Yes, little one, we are." She looked down at her son. "This is Juno, Kellen." Kellen didn't speak, only pressed himself closer to his mother's side. Juno, however, was undeterred. She marched forward and pointed at the stone animal. "What's that?" "It is a laurel," Anya answered for him, her hand resting protectively on Kellen's head. "A creature from our home world. Kellen does not speak common well yet. He is shy. I can teach him," Juno declared, her chest puffing out. "I'm the best at talking. Want to see my room? I have a glow-in-the-dark star map on the ceiling." She reached out, not for a hand, but for the sleeve of Kellen's tunic. The boy flinched for a second, then, looking from Juno's earnest face to the stone laurel in his hand, he allowed himself to be slowly tugged away from his mother's side and down the hallway. Anya watched them go, a complex mix of hope and fear in her luminous eyes. "Your daughter is very vibrant. That's one word for it," Leo said with a slight smile. "Please sit. Can I get you something? The synthesizer makes a passable tea." "Water is fine, thank you," she said, settling gracefully on the edge of the sofa. Her gaze swept the room, taking in the comfortable clutter, the family photos, the half-assembled model rocket on the coffee table. She didn't seem judgmental, merely observant. "Your message said you're from the diaspora," Leo began, handing her a glass. "I'm sorry for what your people have endured." Anya nodded, her silvery tendrils stilling. "My husband, Tevin, was a botanist. He was studying the flora in the neutral zone when the conflict reached it. The outpost was destroyed." She stated it plainly, but the pain in her eyes was a deep, ancient well. "We had nowhere to go. The Terran Alliance offered sanctuary, but the refugee quarters are temporary and loud. Kellen has not spoken since we arrived." Leo felt a pang of profound empathy. "I lost my wife, Alara, 2 years ago. An illness the medics couldn't stop. It's a difficult road." Their eyes met, a shared understanding passing between them. To different species, two different kinds of loss, yet the same hollow ache in the chest. A sudden, loud crash came from Juno's room, followed by a moment of dead silence, and then a wail that was unmistakably Kellen's. Anya was on her feet in an instant, Leo right behind her. They found Juno looking guiltily at a toppled pile of toys while Kellen knelt on the floor, sobbing silently over the laurel figurine, which had broken into clean pieces. "I'm sorry. I bumped the shelf and it fell," Juno cried, her eyes filling with tears of her own. Anya knelt, gathering her son into her arms, murmuring soft, chiming words in her own language. She picked up the 2 pieces of the carving. "It was his father's," she said to Leo, her voice thick with a grief that was both old and new. It was all he had left of him. Leo's heart broke for the small, trembling boy. He knelt as well, his large, calloused hand resting gently on Juno's shoulder. "Accidents happen, Bug, but we have to be careful with things that are important to people." He looked at the broken stone, then at Anya. "Let me take a look at it. I work with complex systems all day. I'm good with my hands, maybe. Maybe I can fix it." Anya looked at him, skepticism and a desperate hope warring in her starlit eyes. She slowly handed him the pieces. Their fingers brushed, and Leo was surprised to find her skin was warm and carried a subtle, soothing energy, like the hum of a deep space calm signal. Juno, sniffling, looked at Kellen. "My daddy can fix anything. He makes the whole farms on the station work. He'll fix your animal, I promise." For sets of eyes were on him now, Juno's full of blind faith, Kellen's full of fragile hope, and Anya's a silent question. Leo looked down at the 2 pieces of smooth, alien stone in his palm. It was more than just a repair job. It was a test. "I can try," he said, his voice softer than he intended, and in that moment, he knew this was about far more than just hiring help. Leo worked in his small utility room, a space that served as his personal workshop. Under the bright glow of a focused lamp, he examined the broken laurel. The fracture was clean. Using a specialized adhesive for ceramics and composites, he applied a minute drop to one edge. His hands, usually employed for calibrating massive terraforming rigs, now moving with a surgeon's precision. He held the pieces together, counting the seconds in his head until the bond set. The door hissed open softly. Anya stood there, holding 2 mugs. "The children are asleep," she said, her voice a gentle chime in the quiet room. "I thought you might require sustenance." "Thanks," Leo said, accepting the mug. It was the strong, black coffee he preferred, made just right. He noted, not for the first time, how quickly and quietly she had learned the rhythms of their household. In the 3 days since she'd started, the apartment had transformed from a place of frantic survival into a haven of order. Meals appeared on time, Juno's homework was completed without tears, and a sense of calm had settled over the rooms. A stark contrast to the sterile noise of the station is that Anya leaned closer, her silvery tendrils shifting forward with interest. The subtle, floral scent that seemed to emanate from her filled the space between them. "Almost done," Leo said, his voice a little huskier than he intended. He placed the final piece, holding it firm. "Just needs to cure fully." He set the repaired figurine on the workbench. The seam was virtually invisible. "What do you think?" Anya picked it up, her long, elegant fingers turning it in the light. Her starlit eyes widened. "It is perfect. I cannot see the break. Kellen will be. He will be so relieved." Her gaze met his, and the gratitude in them was a tangible warmth. "Thank you, Leo. It was the least I could do," he said, waving a hand dismissively, though her use of his first name sent a small, pleasant shock through him. Juno's enthusiasm can be a bit destructive. "Your daughter has brought light back into my son's eyes in 3 days," Anya replied, her voice soft. "He has not spoken, no, but he has begun to hum. A Velen morning song. It is a start. He follows her everywhere." Leo smiled. "She's always wanted a sibling." He took a sip of his coffee, gathering his nerve. "Speaking of the children, I wanted to talk to you about your housing situation." Anya's tendrils stiffened almost imperceptibly. "I received a notification today. We have 11 days before we must vacate the refugee quarters. That's what I wanted to discuss," Leo said. "I have a spare room. It's not large, but it has its own wash cubicle. It would fit you and Kellen. You could stay here, permanently." Anya's luminous eyes widened. "You would offer us shelter, but you barely know us." "I know enough," he said, his voice firm. "I know you're brilliant with Juno. I know the apartment hasn't felt like a home since, well, in a long time. And I know our children have formed a bond I don't want to break. It's a practical solution. You get room and board as part of your compensation. It would not be proper," Anya said, though her tendrils had relaxed slightly. "In Velen culture, for an unmated male and female to share a dwelling, it implies certain intentions." "What kind of intentions?" Leo asked, suddenly very aware of how close they were standing. "Intentions of bonding," she said softly. "What humans might call courtship." The workshop felt several degrees warmer. Leo cleared his throat. "Well, human customs are different. We're more flexible about these things, are you?" Her tendrils moved in a way he hadn't seen before, a slow, undulating pattern that seemed almost playful. "How interesting. On Vale, a male offering his hearth to a female, and her offspring is the first and most significant step." Leo's mouth went dry. "That's not, I wasn't suggesting." Anya's musical laugh interrupted his stammer. "I am teasing you, Leo. We Velen do understand cultural differences." Her expression softened, the starlight in her eyes gentle. "But I am deeply grateful for your offer. For Kellen's sake, I accept." Truly, relief flooded him, mixed with something else he couldn't name. "Great. That's great. You can move in this weekend. There is one more Velen custom I should mention," Anya said, her tone serious but her eyes holding a glint of mischief. "When accepting shelter, it is customary to seal the agreement with a gesture of appreciation. Before Leo could ask what kind of gesture, Anya leaned forward and pressed her lips to his cheek. The contact was brief, but the warmth of her skin seemed to seep directly into his bloodstream, lingering long after she pulled away. Is that how humans show appreciation? Yes? She asked, her innocence feigned. Something like that, Leo managed, his heart thumping a strange rhythm against his ribs. Good night, Leo, she said, turning to leave. And thank you. You humans have remarkably skilled hands. As she disappeared down the hallway, Leo remained frozen, his fingertips touching the spot on his cheek that still tingled with her warmth. He told himself the sudden heat in his veins was from the confined space of the workshop. It had nothing to do with the graceful way she moved, or how her eyes saw right through his weary exterior, or how her presence made the empty apartment feel like a home again. Nothing at all. The move was not a simple transfer of belongings. Anya insisted on performing the hearth blessing, a Velen ritual for a new dwelling. The space must be cleansed of lingering energies and invited to embrace the new ones we bring, she explained, lighting a small ceramic burner that released a sweet, smoky incense, reminiscent of night-blooming flowers and ozone. Leo watched, fascinated, as Anya moved through the apartment. She wore her traditional garments, now a flowing, deep blue tunic and leggings embroidered with silver thread that mapped constellations from her home sky. Her movements were a slow, elegant dance, her tendrils flowing around her shoulders like liquid mercury. Is all this really necessary? He asked, though he found the ritual strangely beautiful. For Velen, a dwelling is not merely shelter, she replied, her voice taking on a rhythmic, chanting quality. It is a living entity. The energies we bring must harmonize with those already present, or there will be discord. Juno and Kellen followed behind her, giggling as they tried to mimic her graceful gestures. Kellen, holding his perfectly repaired laurel, even did a small, happy spin. Now, Anya said, approaching Leo with the burner, the primary resident must accept the new energies. What do I do? Simply breathe in the essence, she instructed, holding the burner before him, and state your acceptance. Leo leaned forward, inhaling the aromatic smoke. It was pleasant, clearing his mind. I accept the new energies. Anya's eyes crinkled, perhaps with more conviction. Leo straightened his shoulders, looking around the home he was now sharing. I accept these new energies into my home. Excellent. Anya's tendrils rippled with approval. Now we must seal the ritual with the joining of essences. The what now? Before he could react, Anya stepped closer and pressed her palm flat against his. A tingling sensation, warm and electric, spread from the point of contact up his arm. It was not unpleasant, feeling like a sudden, profound connection, in Velen tradition. She explained, her voice softer, the joining of essences symbolizes the merging of life paths, a promise of harmony within the shared space. Leo was acutely aware of her proximity, the floral scent, the warmth of her blue skin against his. Is this still part of the moving in ritual? He asked, his voice low. Anya's starlit eyes held his. Perhaps not entirely. The moment was broken by Juno's excited voice. Can we do the essence joining too? Anya smoothly stepped back, her composure returning. Of course, everyone in the dwelling should participate. As the children pressed their palms together, giggling at the tickly feeling, Leo caught Anya watching him. Something deep and unspoken in her gaze. The station-wide festival of the twin moons was that evening. The corridors were decked with holographic streamers, and the air was filled with music from a dozen worlds. I think we will stay in, Anya said, watching the bustling crowds from their viewport with a hint of anxiety. It is very loud, but it's the best festival. Juno wailed. There's candy from Centauri Prime. Leo saw the conflict on Anya's face. She wanted Kellen to experience joy, but the crowds were daunting. An idea sparked. We'll have our own festival, he declared. Right here, with Juno's help. He programmed the food synthesizer to produce an array of sweet and savory treats from different cultures. Anya, touched by the gesture, described Velen festival traditions. They didn't have candy, but they had starlight wafers, thin, crisp biscuits that dissolved on the tongue with a faint, sweet energy. She showed Kellen how to arrange them in patterns on the floor, telling a story of the twin moons of Vael. As the station's artificial sky dimmed to simulate night, And the twin moons, Lor and Tal, appeared large in the viewport. They sat together on the floor, surrounded by food and laughter. Kellen, emboldened by the intimacy of their celebration, quietly took a wafer and offered it to Juno. Ben, Leo's friend from the terraforming corps, stopped by later with a bottle of synthale. He took in the scene, the hybrid celebration, the children asleep in a pile of cushions, Leo and Anya sitting close together, their shoulders almost touching. "Well, look at this," Ben said with a wide grin. "The Evans household looks good on you, Leo." After Ben left, Leo and Anya were alone again, standing by the viewport. The twin moons cast a soft, silvery light into the room. "Thank you for this," Anya said softly. "For understanding. Thank you for sharing your traditions with us," Leo replied. It felt right. He turned to her. She looked up at him, her face bathed in moonlight, her starlit eyes reflecting the twin orbs in the sky. The air between them hummed with the same energy as their joined palms. Leo leaned down, drawn by an irresistible pull, and Anya rose to meet him. Their lips met in a kiss that was tentative at first, then deepened, filled with weeks of unspoken longing and the sweet taste of starlight wafers. It was gentle and passionate, a merging not just of lips, but of two lonely orbits finally falling into sync. When they parted, both were breathless. From the doorway, a sleepy voice giggled. "I knew it," Juno whispered, before darting back to her room. Enya's musical laugh filled the room, a sound of pure, unburdened joy. Leo rested his forehead against hers, his heart full. "I guess the hearth blessing worked." "It appears it did," Anya murmured, her tendrils gently brushing his cheek. "It appears it did." The happiness of their new arrangement was a fragile bubble, and it was inevitably punctured. The pressure came not from Leo's side, but from Enya's. A Velen man came to their door. He was older, his violet skin etched with fine lines, his silvery tendrils woven into complex, formal braids. He carried an air of stern authority. "Anya," he said, his chiming voice devoid of warmth. His eyes, like cold nebulae, swept over Leo with clear disapproval. "I am Soren. I speak for the elder council of our enclave." Enya's tendrils pulled tight against her scalp. "Elder Soren, this is a surprise. Please come in. I would prefer not to linger in a human's dwelling," Soren said, his gaze lingering on the children's shared toys scattered near the sofa. "I have come to remind you of your duty. Your period of isolation is over. It is time to return to your people." Anya stood straighter. "My son and I have found a home here, Elder." "This is not a home," Soren countered, his voice sharp. "This is a transaction. You dishonor Tevin's memory by becoming a human servant. His lineage was pure, his work vital. His widow should be with her own kind, considering a union that would strengthen our community, not dilute it with alien sentiment." Leo felt a hot surge of anger, but Anya placed a subtle hand on his arm, her touch instantly calming. "My husband's work was about understanding life in all its forms," Anya said, her voice steady though Leo could feel a slight tremor in her hand. "He believed in connection, not isolation. I am honoring his memory by building a life of peace and happiness for his son." Soren's eyes narrowed. "Happiness, a fleeting human concept. Duty is eternal. Elder Joven has expressed interest in a bonding. It would be a great honor for you and provide a strong father for the boy." At the mention of his name, Kellen, who had been watching silently from the hallway, stepped forward. His small face was set in a determined frown. He walked to his mother's side and took her hand, then looked directly at the elder. He didn't speak, but he shook his head, a firm, definite no. Soren seemed taken aback by the defiance. "The child does not understand what is at stake." "I think he understands perfectly," Leo said, finally finding his voice. "His home is here. His family is here." Soren's gaze was icy. "You have overstepped, human. You disrupt the natural order." He turned back to Anya. "This is not over, child. Think on your people. Think on your husband's legacy." After he left, the warm apartment felt cold. The shadow of the past had fallen across their new hearth. Later that night, Anya was quiet, her tendrils still coiled with tension. "I am sorry you had to witness that." "Don't be," Leo said, taking her hand. What did he mean, disrupt the natural order? Anya sighed. There are old beliefs among some conservative circles. Prophecies, you would call them. They speak of a dilution of the Velen essence, a weakening of our psychic empathy through mixing with other species. They fear what our children might become, or what they might not become. So this is about fear, Leo said, pulling her into an embrace. Fear of the unknown. But what we have here, Anya, this is real. This is known. He kissed her forehead. We're not a prophecy. We're a family. And I'm not letting anyone take that away. Anya leaned into him, drawing strength from his solid, human certainty. In a galaxy of cold traditions and colder politics, the warmth of his hearth was the only truth she needed. The confrontation with Elder Soren lit a fire within Leo. He wouldn't let their happiness be dismissed as a mere disruption. He wanted to prove its value, not just to the Velen elders, but to the entire station, and to themselves. He found Anya in the Agri Dome, where she often visited, finding solace among the green, growing things. I have an idea, he said, his eyes alight with passion, but I can't do it without you. He led her to a derelict sector on the station's outer ring, a place once meant for a park, but long since abandoned due to funding cuts. It was a sad, gray space, filled with broken conduits and dusty empty planters. It's bleak, Anya said, confused. It's a blank canvas, Leo countered. What if we could turn this into something? Not just a human garden or a Velen garden, a harmony garden, a place that shows what our two species can create together. Anya's starlit eyes began to glow with understanding, then with excitement. A hybrid ecosystem, using terraforming principles and Velen botanical knowledge. Leo, it is brilliant. They became a force of nature. Leo used his engineering expertise to repair the environmental systems, rigging up specialized lights and nutrient flows. Anya, drawing on her late husband's research and her own innate understanding of flora, selected the plants. She contributed seeds and cuttings from the small, precious stash she had carried from Vale silver-leafed creepers that hummed softly, and luminous fungi that pulsed with a gentle light. Leo contributed robust earth species, tomatoes, basil, and vibrant marigolds. They worked side by side, their hands in the soil. Leo's strength moved heavy equipment, while Anya's delicate touch guided the roots of fragile seedlings. Their children were their eager helpers, with Juno enthusiastically digging holes and Kellen carefully watering each plant. His silent concentration a testament to his care. The gray sector began to transform. Green shoots pushed through the enriched soil. The air, once stale, now smelled of damp earth, growing things, and the subtle, floral scent of Velen plants. The combination was unique and beautiful. The silver Velen creepers intertwined with tomato vines, and the glowing fungi dotted the base of Earth sunflowers like fallen stars. News of the project spread. Station Administrator Vance came for a tour, his stern face breaking into a smile as he saw the thriving, interspecies oasis. This is exactly the kind of initiative we need on this station, he declared. Cooperation, not just coexistence. Even some Velen from the Enclave began to visit, curious. They saw Anya not as a traitor, but as an innovator, and they saw Leo not as a corrupting influence, but as a dedicated partner. The garden was an argument more powerful than any words. One evening, as the station's simulated sunset painted the sky in oranges and purples, Leo and Anya stood in the heart of their creation. The garden was alive around them, a symphony of two worlds. Anya, Leo said, turning to her. He took both her hands in his. When I posted that ad, I was just looking for help. I was so lost. I never expected to find a partner, a friend, a love that would make me feel whole again. He took a deep breath. I don't want you to just live in my home. I want you to share my life, officially, in whatever way we can. I want to build a future with you, not as human and Velen, but as Leo and Anya. Anya's starlit eyes shimmered with unshed tears, their light more beautiful than any constellation. My heart found its home with you long ago, Leo Evans. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They were married in the garden they had built together. Station Administrator Vance officiated. Juno, in a dress sprinkled with glitter to look like Anya's tendrils, was the flower girl. Kellen, holding his laurel and wearing a small, serious expression, was the ring bearer. As Leo and Anya exchanged their vows, surrounded by the living proof of their love. The garden seemed to hold its breath. Then, as Leo leaned in to kiss his bride, a small, clear voice rang out, "Mama, Papa." They broke apart and looked down. Kellen was looking up at them, a wide, genuine smile on his face for the first time since he'd arrived. The word was simple, but the meaning was universe-spanning. It wasn't Velen or human. It was family. Leo picked up his son, and Anya wrapped her arms around them both, her tendrils curling around Leo's neck. They stood there, in their garden, under the artificial stars, a perfect, unexpected, and beautiful family. They had not just built a garden, they had planted a new future, and it was beginning to bloom.